Hi everyone, my name is Tamed and I'm a typography designer and calligraphy teacher. I host lessons on calligraphy in multiple styles for beginner and advanced levels in Budapest, Hungary. Today we are going to cover calligraphy basics as part of our TwinMarker user guide. If you are interested in further tips and tricks, make sure to check out our website and social media channels. The goal of my brand is to bring people closer to letters. I would like to break down the misconception that calligraphy is something that you have to be born with. On the contrary, it can be learned through a linear set of steps. Why is this so important, you may ask? Well, calligraphy can command a stop in your life, slow down an otherwise hectic mindset and help you reach a level of calm. It can also lower your stress levels and help with your concentration that can also be translated to your day-to-day life. Being present in the present can be a true gift in our otherwise hectic world, wouldn't you agree? So what exactly is calligraphy? Calligraphy is the decorative formatting of letters. Its traditions go back many years, and it's upon these traditions that modern calligraphy is built, not on today's handwriting, as many would maybe think. Today, it's used mostly for decorative purposes. Unlike regular handwriting, our goal isn't to get as much information on a piece of paper as fast as possible, but rather drawing each letter with as much beauty and grace as we can. And that's the key to calligraphy. Since practicing feels good, it's just a side effect that your letters become more and more beautiful on the way. Since we'll be using our TwinMarker today, we can dive deeper into brush calligraphy. The flexible brush tip is perfect for alternating thick and thin lines, and the fine bullet tip can be used for practicing shapes and strokes. The base to everything is the way you keep your hand and body, plus your confidence in using your pen. Take a seat by a table and make sure you have enough space to work unobstructed. Pay attention to the position of your forearm. Make sure it stays on the table all the way to your elbow. This doesn't mean that your elbow stays static and you use your arm like a compass. Rather, it gives you some solid leverage while you're writing. Try not to let your arm fall off the table, okay? Let's move on. For a solid control, we will be holding the marker about 2 cm from the tip. Try and think about your forearm as one straight unit, all the way from your elbow to the tip of your marker. Don't let your wrist bend back or forward. The unnecessary movements just result in unnecessary stops in your otherwise smooth transitions. And that's not something we want, right? We will be keeping our tool at a 45-degree angle throughout the entire process. We lay the tip on the sheet, like so. We never use the point, only the side for thin and thick lines alike. I teach modern calligraphy with the traditional basics. Based on that, we will be writing our letters in a 55-degree angle. See? The lines show you the way on the practice sheet. It shows you exactly how to tilt your paper you're using. Just enough so that these lines are perpendicular to you. This is how easy and precise setting up our optimal positioning can be. If you're left-handed, you might want to tilt your paper in the opposite direction. So I do find quite often with my left-handed students that they like using the same setup as my right-handed students. Whatever works for you is the right way to go. And you know what? If you're right-handed but don't feel like the positioning is 100% yours, go ahead and fine-tune it to your liking. Your comfort comes first. Calligraphy tools can be separated into 3 large categories: broad nibs, pointed tip tools, and there's a strong miscellaneous category too. Think about it, you can use pretty much anything from small brooms to dishwasher sponges. With the right skills and the right tools, the world is your oyster. Our TwinMarker is a part of the pointed tip category. What sets this apart from other categories is that our line widths are determined by the force at which we push down on our paper. For this, we have a simple rule, which is upward lines are always thin, downward lines are always thick. With this style, these will follow each other rather nicely. One thin, then one thick, one thin, and so on. For thin lines, when we start moving up on the paper, we always apply gentle pressure, just barely touching the paper with the tip. On the way down, we will apply more pressure, so the tip will be making contact with the paper on a larger surface. These will be our thickest lines. If you chant the mantra of up thin, down thick, you can't go wrong. In calligraphy, every style, whether it's Gothic or modern, is made up from blocks. We will be looking at 8 different types of basic strokes. There will be letters that can be built up clearly from these forms. There will be some that have somewhat moderated versions of these forms, and there will be a few that are a bit more special, but all of them will be well-rounded and nicely arched. Let's take a look at these strokes. On the first stroke, we will be moving our hand from down to up between the guidelines in a slow but confident fashion. So as the rules go, this will be a thin line. With the second stroke, we'll start making our way down. So looking at our rules again, this will be our thickest line. On the third stroke, you will notice the transition, but check it out. The transition doesn't follow the length of the whole stroke, it only shows up in about 1/3 of the space between the guidelines. It always pops up when we are doing the thick line. As we get closer to the baseline or any sort of horizontal line later on, we let our line go thin. Our next stroke will be the opposite of this. We will be going down to up, so thin, and only then do we start going wider. Once we've reached the horizontal line, that's when we start pressing down a bit more to get our transition in the top third. Don't beat yourself up if your arches aren't perfect yet. Once you get the logic and the technique down, there will be no more obstacles. With the next stroke, we will basically be pulling the other two together. Look, now we have 2 transitions and they still formed in the wider area. This is a constant rule while we try to keep our thin lines as clear and as uniform as possible. The ovals can be the heart and soul of your writing. A lot is determined by how you form this shape. It's not a mistake if your starting and finishing lines don't meet up perfectly, but make sure you never break your arches. Since this shape is made of arches, we have no choice but to draw it in one movement. We shouldn't start rushing because of this. In fact, it's better to go slower and pay attention to the thirds. The last 2 shapes will be needed for the ends of the letters that go upwards or downwards. Here you have to pay attention to your movements. You know, up is thin, down is thick. The transitions will move further up or down as these are longer shapes. A frequently asked question is how dramatic do the differences have to be between our thin and our thick lines? Well, this is also something that is completely up to you. If the two look different visually, there won't be a problem, promise. It is from these basic strokes we will build our ABC. Look, the letter A will have 3 moves. One thin line, the first one we saw, an oval line, and on top of this we can place a little horseshoe shape. While writing your letters, always focus on your basic strokes. Don't break your lines. Only stop with your thin lines where you know the thick line will follow on top. It's very important that we don't just pretend to lift our hands up. After every stroke we have to actually lift our hands, so all our lines get the chance to be written with the most optimal hand movement. Because it's a bit like normal handwriting, I often see my students accidentally switching from calligraphy to regular handwriting, but this can also happen in the beginning if you are trying to rush. My suggestion would be that you try and come to terms with this particular process having to take a bit longer and be more patient with yourself. It will be worth the wait. In the beginning, I suggest you work as slow as possible. Make sure you have the movements and direction down to a T. Focus on making sure your thin and thick lines are in place and produce the right transitions. It can always help to just write down the word in advance, however you can, so you can get some visual cues. Repeating similar gestures with your strokes will give your calligraphy the desired consistency. I have prepared a reference alphabet for you, in which I indicated the movements and the order of strokes. You can find it in PDF format below the video. Print it out, try to copy it, and then try reproducing it on another sheet of paper based on observation instead of copying. Finally, I will show you some captions with connected letters for you to study as well. For connecting the letter, we will use the help of traditional calligraphy. You may draw starting and finishing strokes before and after each letter. Before my starting letter, I'm placing a starting stroke. Usually this would be the continuation of the previous letter. We also have to pay attention to the finishes of each letter. We continue with our lines and only stop where the next thick line will start. Remember, everything here happens exactly the same way as it did when we went through the basic strokes. We focus on the blocks, always shaping only one stroke at a time and lifting our hand. I have included the guidelines I use as a reference in the practice material, so feel free to use them. And don't worry, the path of calligraphy, just like any process in life, is not linear. You will have better and worse attempts, but that's perfectly fine. As the popular saying goes, the journey matters more than the destination. Enjoy yourself and allow yourself to make mistakes. We can learn a lot from them. This concludes our video on modern brush calligraphy basics. If you like our video, make sure to hit the like button and follow us on YouTube and other social media channels. I wish you a pleasant practice and a trip full of experiences on your calligraphy journey.